Quarterly Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yeah. Keep on. Never say die. Keep on. Like this. Keep on. Never say die. Keep on. Like this. Never say die. Never say die. Keep on. Never say die. Like this. Never say
In the midst of sorrow, you can see up and looking down. A brighter day tomorrow will bring. Oh, you hear the voice of reason telling you this can never be done. No matter how hard reality seems, just hold on to the dreams, yeah.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, your host and White House correspondent. I'm in touch, so you be in touch. Follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, DRNIIQ, and there I am. Fresh for you to follow. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app if you haven't already. That will never miss an episode. Subscribe to a More Perfect Union podcast. That way you'll never miss an episode. You'll never miss any of our conversations that we work very hard to create for you. Subject matter experts and people who are really doing everything they can to shape the culture. And speaking of folks that are out there on the front lines and shaping the culture, this past Sunday, I had a chance to catch up with Bishop William Barber. He is part of the group Repairers of the Breach. And he was in LA just this past weekend, really talking about this new project that he's launched with folks like Steve Schmidt, co-founder of the Lincoln Project. They launched a project in LA called Liberty Vans. It's a project of the Save America movement. And what they're doing, which I think is pretty cool, is deploying these Liberty Vans across the city of LA for a whole month. You're just doing this for this month to test it out, to uplift and amplify some of the local organizing efforts that are afoot in response to its ongoing illegal and what they call immoral attacks on immigrant communities. They are calling on veterans and faith leaders, concerned community members, and attorneys who are willing to step up and engage in a disciplined, nonviolent action together to shine a light on these attacks. And so if this speaks to you, go ahead and email them for more information at thesavemovement.org. That's the Save America org. Now it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. If you've been scrolling through TikTok and you've seen some of these doomsday predictions and you sort of thought, well, okay, that's interesting. Well, there may be more to it. The Associated Press is reporting on the rapture. What is the rapture and why is doomsday prediction? Why is it spreading on TikTok? Well, the rapture is near, at least according to an apocalyptic prophecy by one South African man who says it'll fall on September 23rd or 24th. His claim has gone viral, with some believing that it will mark the end of times and many more mocking it on social media. And in case you are wondering, what the heck is he talking about? For some people, they believe that the rapture is the belief of some evangelical Christians in a future event where Jesus will return to earth to take true believers to heaven before a period of great tribulation that culminates in the end of the world. End of the world. And so, in case you were wondering, does the word rapture even appear in the Bible? Well, no. But there are commonly cited passages used to support the belief, including passage in 1 Corinthians and Matthew 24. And in case you were wondering, well, what's the latest prediction and what are the reactions? Well, Joshua Makala, this is the South African man who describes himself as only a believer with no religious title, says that God allowed him to see the future in a widely viewed YouTube video published 3 months ago. And in it, he recounts seeing Jesus on a throne and hearing him say that he's soon. He says 3rd and the 24th, 2025, I will come to take my church. His predictions have stoked debates by Christian commentators. It's gone viral on social media, including TikTok, under the hashtag Rapture Talk, where many have mocked it as another false claim by a false prophet. And so, this is the opportunity for you to decide good, bad, and ugly headlines. I'm just serving them up. In other news, Trump at the UN today. And did y'all see this? A bad escalator, a bad teleprompter, and a chance 39-second meeting. Yeah, President Trump, he went scorched earth today in his speech at the 80th United Nations General Assembly, criticizing everything from the UN's faulty escalators to a lack of action by member nations to solve global wars. The USA Today is reporting that he touted what he described as his own record of bringing an end to 7 wars and stopping the influx of undocumented immigrants into the U.S. while railing against what he called the globalist immigration agenda. He also broke news about running into Brazilian President Luiz da Silva on the way to his speech and making an impromptu decision to meet up next week after months of rancor between the two. And things got a little rocky. At least they were off to a rocky. So President late when escalates stopped on that. That's what Trump said. And if the first lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. But she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. That's what the president said. Today, he stood at the podium and the prompter. 2 things I got from the United Nations: a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Thank you very much. And before long, the teleprompter was back on and Trump launched into the United Nations squandered potential, saying, quotes, I've ended 7 wars, dealt with leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering help in finalizing the deal. That's what he said, adding that he didn't think too much of it at the time because he was too busy working to save millions of lives. Trump said the UN wasn't part of the negotiations. There is no indication that he ever sought out the international body. And right after the speech, he struck a conciliatory tone in a meeting with the UN Secretary General, saying the U.S. was, quotes, behind the United Nations 100%. Again, you decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Keeping with Trump just a moment later, because and I pray that will ultimately impact many of our households if the government does shut down. Trump canceled a meeting with top Democrats on how to prevent a government shutdown. I should say he abruptly canceled a planned meeting with top congressional Democrats just a week before a potential government shutdown. In a long social media post, President Trump wrote that, quotes, after reviewing the details of the, quotes, unserious and ridiculous demands that Democrats are making, I've decided that no meeting with their congressional leaders could possibly be productive. He unloaded on Democrats and said any meeting with House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer would be conditioned on their changing their posture. His comments online came just a few hours after Jeffries and Schumer a joint statement about the meeting, which had been planned for Thursday. In the midst of a standoff as government funding is set to expire on September 30th, the Republican-controlled House passed a short-term bill to keep the government open through November 21st, but the Senate, which requires 60 votes to pass the bill, rejected both the GOP and the Democratic proposals. Jeffries slammed Trump for canceling the meeting, writing, quote, Schumer also responded to Trump's move, saying Trump is, quote, running away from the negotiating table before he even gets there. While Americans face rising costs and a Republican healthcare crisis, Trump would rather throw a tantrum than do his job. Schumer went on to say that Democrats are ready to work to avoid a shutdown. Trump and Republicans are holding America hostage. Donald Trump will own the shutdown. So that's where we're at. And in the event of a government shutdown, that is something that impacts all of us. We have been down this road too many times before. But here we are again. Here we are again. When we come forward, I am delighted to welcome Desiree Cormier-Smith. She is the co-founder of the Alliance for Justice and Diplomacy. She's also a former U.S. Special Representative on Racial Justice and Diplomacy at the U.S. State Department. No better day to have Desiree on to separate the fact from the fiction and help us understand how Trump's visit to the United Nations will impact us all right here at home and abroad. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
This is Secret Clinical dominating extra stinky stress sweat. And this is regular deodorant. Secret Clinical in a heat wave. Oh, what a beautiful day. This is regular deodorant. Ugh, I can't. Secret Clinical with workout sweat. Let's run another marathon. And regular deodorant. How much more? Secret is the GOAT because nothing fights sweat better.
Stay fresher under pressure.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter?
Right? And the best part, they accept Discover.
Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right. So we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2025 Nielsen report.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. Let's preserve Black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from Black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, Black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of Black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling Black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic Black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandloss.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
We have no permanent friends or permanent enemies. Only permanent interests. As we effort to build a more perfect union.
Hello.
You are in Union LA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, joining you live from Washington, D.C., where Congressional Black Caucus ALC Week is just beginning to get underway, and delighted to be joined with Desiree Cormier-Smith, the co-founder of the Alliance for Diplomacy and Justice, also former special representative for racial justice and diplomacy at the U.S. State Department. Welcome back to the show, Desiree.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for, again, helping us to make it make sense and separate the fact from the fiction. This was a day that will live on in infamy at the United Nations. President Trump criticizing the UN for failing to end wars and address immigration concerns. For our leaders, learners, and listeners that are just getting up to speed, they should know that President Trump delivered a critical address to the UN General Assembly, charging the institution with failing to act to solve spiraling conflicts and immigration woes, and saying they don't solve wars. He went on to say all they seem to do is write really strongly worded letters, touting people at a moment of heightened strain was over the Palestinian statehood. He also called climate change concerns a con job. I could go on and on and on, but this is very unusual behavior for a U.S. president at the United Nations, but not unusual behavior for President Trump.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, as someone who, worked and staffed senior U.S. government officials at the United Nations General Assembly High Level Week, which we're in right now, someone who has, provided input for the president's speech to be delivered at the UN General Assembly, I was just flabbergasted by that speech for so many reasons. This is the moment when the US president is supposed to sort of galvanize the world and let the world know that the US stands strong, right? This is a moment of when we face all of these challenges, but we can face them as a community. The speech is supposed to be reassuring. It's supposed to build confidence in not only the global system of cooperation that is the UN, but also the fact that the United States is there as its, our most ardent supporter. However imperfect we are, right? Like, let's be real about it. We are imperfect, but we helped found this system, and we've always been the biggest backer. I don't think we've ever had a president use this opportunity, this once a year opportunity, to completely just undermine the entire United Nations system, to talk about his own political opponents here at home, and to criticize leaders of other countries for pursuing policies that are in the best interests of their people, whether it be policies to try and combat and mitigate the impacts of climate change, policies to try and be more humane and welcoming to migrants fleeing horrific situations. It was just a bizarre speech. And frankly, it was also quite embarrassing. This is It was not this was the United Nations. This was not one of his rallies. The content of the speech was completely inappropriate and did not inspire much confidence in the United States' continued willingness to be a positive member of the global community.
Will the UN survive this continued assault from the current American president? We know that the U.S. is one of the biggest contributors of funding to the United Nations. What are you hearing from UN leadership? How do they expect to survive, another, 3.5 years or so of this kind of very hostile relationship with the American president?
Yeah, well, this was the very real danger and risk of the United Nations being so dependent on one country for the majority of its funding. The United States is the largest contributor by far to the United Nations and its systems. And I think there was always this assumption since the establishment of the UN following World War II in the mid 1940s that the United States would always be a reliable partner. And so even though there had been concerns about the dominance of the United States in terms of the UN's contributions, there weren't actions taken to counter it. I think now the United Nations is going to have to grapple with the fact that the Trump administration is zeroing out a lot of its contributions, including the pocket rescission that we talked about a couple weeks ago. That included several $1 million for UN peacekeeping operations. So I also want to highlight the deep irony of President Trump going to the United Nations and deriding them for not ending these wars, quote unquote, right? Yet he's also taking away all of U.S. contributions for missions to keep peace around the world. Make it make sense.
I know. Make it make sense. It's hard to do, but also, Desiree, make this make sense. We know, as reported by NBC News, that when Trump addressed the UN during his first term, he promised to, quote, reject the ideology of globalism, and he urged other countries to join him in a patriotic national embrace. What he's saying now is not at odds with what he said during his first term as president. And so between then and now, why hasn't the United Nations leadership, come up with a plan to protect and preserve its mission, to protect and preserve its program? Trump stood first term.
Yeah, you broke up a little bit, but I think I got the gist of your question, which is essentially why didn't the United Nations take more measures to sort of protect itself from the dominance of the United States and the ramifications of our political volatility here, right? That is a great question. I think there are a few reasons. One, it's hard to overstate just how big the United States' contributions to the United Nations are. There is not a country in the world that can take over, that can fill the void that we are going to be leaving. I think second, and this is important, after Trump's first term, when President Biden and Vice President Harris were in office, there were a lot of reassurances that America is back, right? And that we really want to restore and bolster the multilateral system as a way to promote peace and stability and well-being and prosperity around the world. And, I was a part of the Biden-Harris administration. I didn't run foreign policy, obviously, because it would have looked a lot different. But I was a part of that effort to really show that we wanted to bolster and support the UN and its systems. So we re-engaged in the Human Rights Council. We re-engaged with all the human rights treaty bodies, and we actually met our obligations and submitted the overdue reports that weren't submitted during the last 4 years, during the 4 years of the first Trump administration, right? We did all of these confidence building measures to show the UN that we were acting in good faith. And I would often get asked by officials of the UN, by other foreign government officials, how do we know that Trump isn't going to come back and the pendulum will swing all the way to the opposite? And I would be frank with them and I'd say, I can't guarantee that. That is a reality in a democracy, right? We never know how elections are going to go. But I do wish that the United Nations would have taken more steps to really prevent the scenario in which it finds itself today, in which they're going to have to end entire programs, potentially shut down entire agencies and offices because of the United States' retreat from its budgetary contributions.
When we come forward, I want to talk about a piece that you and some of your colleagues recently published with the Council on Foreign Relations. The headline reads, Trump's boycott of the UN's first. The framing of this, I think, is really important, as a lot of the reporting that I've seen thus far about the administration's engagement with the UN has fallen short of this framing. And you all make it pretty clear on exactly how the Trump administration's efforts are putting America last and not first. Don't let all this talk about investments in AI, don't let it fool you. We're going to hear more about the ideas behind this piece. And when we come forward, I also want you to weigh in on the whole Jimmy Kimmel First Amendment challenge. I think there's an opportunity to remind people how freedom of the press, how freedom of speech, how this isn't just an issue impacting a late night TV host. This is one of the biggest issues of our time here at home and around the world. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Desiree Cormier-Smith, co-founder of the Alliance for Diplomacy and Justice, when we come forward.
The audience is listening, thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Wrongful death lawsuits are being filed in New York after a Legionnaires outbreak sickened over 100 people and killed 7 this summer.
How they came up with everything imaginable other than calling it what it was. They try to say, oh, her father had a heart condition. But that ain't what killed him.
Families joined by Al Sharpton and Ben Crump, who announced the suit, blamed the city for slow action and Skanska USA for not registering a cooling tower linked to the outbreak. Billionaire Mackenzie Scott has donated $70 million to the United Negro College Fund as part of a $1 billion effort to support HBCUs. And Howard University's football team has been named HBCU National Team of the Week after a 34-7 win over Hampton University in the 100th Truth and Service Classic. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Tough in Pomona, this earlier wreck on the 60 eastbound before the 71. The crash itself is out of lanes, but there's a bunch of concrete debris in lanes, and that's why traffic is not recovering. You're still backing up East 60 from Fullerton Road in Rowland Heights, and the 57 northbound slammed away from Tonner Canyon Road. Also checking out the drive in Anaheim, East 91, loading up at the 57 freeway all the way to Green River, and the 241 toll road, that slows for about a mile before the Windy Ridge Toll Plaza all the way to the 91.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The 3-0 Chargers will be facing a rookie quarterback Sunday when they play the New York Giants in New York. Giants coach Brian Dable is benching 14-year veteran Russell Wilson in favor of Jackson Dart, the Giants' first-round draft pick in April. Wilson has struggled during the Giants' 0-3 start. He's thrown 3 interceptions and did not have a touchdown pass in 2 of the Giants' 3 games. Giants fans booed Wilson during Sunday's 22-9 loss to Kansas City. HBCU Delaware State, a member of the MEAC Conference, leads the nation in rushing among Division I AA schools. Delaware State is averaging 291 yards per game. The Hornets are 3-1 under first-year coach Deshaun Jackson, a former NFL wide receiver who grew up in Long Beach. Jackson played 8 of his 15 NFL seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles. Delaware State is at Sacred Heart on Saturday. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
Tavis Smiley is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33 and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yay! So many things, big and little, make you uniquely you. Your hobbies, dreams, career, family, and more. Addiction to drugs, including opioids and stimulants, can strip these away from you. Recover your life. Choose treatment for drug addiction and get back to what matters most. Find a provider and proven treatment option that's right for you at ChooseChangeCA.org. Recover you.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has work source centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hit me!
National news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. She is Desiree Cormier-Smith. She's the co-founder of the Alliance for Diplomacy and Justice. She's also a former special U.S. representative for racial justice and diplomacy at the U.S. State Department. I'm gonna tell you, this is how long ago, it feels like eons ago. We went from having you as a U.S. special representative at the U.S. State Department to now having an administration that is pulling back from the United Nations, this international body like we haven't seen before. Talk to us about the piece that you wrote that on foreign relations. Talk to us about the piece that you published, really helping us to be clear-eyed about how Trump's boycott of the UN human rights process is putting America not first.
Yeah, you broke up a little bit, but let me repeat the title for folks. Feel free to Google it and check it out. The title is Trump's Boycott of the UN's Human Rights Process Puts America Last, Not First. And obviously, we went with this title on purpose because this administration likes to say that its foreign policy is all about putting America first. But the actions that it's taking and the policies that it's pursuing actually do not put America first. It actually puts America last, and it makes Americans less safe, less prosperous, and less healthy. So in this article, I, with two brilliant co-authors, two of whom are renowned human rights lawyers and also former senior government officials, including one who served on the White House Council for Gender Equality and another who served as the former ambassador at large for global criminal justice. And we got together because we realized that when the United States became the first country out of 193 member states of the United Nations to withdraw from the Human Rights Universal Periodic Review, it didn't even get any kind of headlines. Like, it just happened. No one noticed. No one was making a fuss about it. And we thought that that shouldn't be the case. There should be an outcry. There should be an outpouring of advocacy against this. And yet we were only seeing this in very small pockets of those foreign policy nerds like us that were following this. And we said, you know what? The American people need to know that this happened and that this is dangerous. And it not only puts America first on a list that we don't want to be on, right? But it actually makes us less safe. So the Universal Periodic Review is a mechanism established by the United Nations Human Rights Council in 2006. And since then, it has had a 100% participation rate from every single country in the world. And the process is simple. It's essentially a voluntary process by which every country in the world sort of presents its record on human rights. But more critically, it is also a space for civil society, both from that country and around the world, to come with their own recommendations. So obviously there will be some countries, and you know, I'm not going to say the United States was perfect at this, but countries aren't always going to be completely honest about their shortcomings, right? Especially when it comes to difficult issues like human rights, especially when it comes to difficult issues like human rights for certain groups of people. Yet, civil society could come and say, okay, so you submitted your own report, country X. Now we're going to submit our shadow report to tell the truth about what's really happening. And that process actually led states to make improvements to their laws. And it actually made a difference. And so by pulling out of this process and being the first country to do so since the inception of this is really dangerous, because it basically says that America is exempt from any kind of review of its human rights record. It also sends the signal to dictators and authoritarians around the world that you don't have to participate in this. Like, you know, human rights really don't matter. And it also really, what scares me the most is what it potentially portends for how this administration is viewing human rights for its own citizens.
I mean, really, I want to double click on that last part. If the administration is pulling out of this body that has existed to help facilitate the adoption of more than 1,400 resolutions that's established, according to your piece, 38 fact-finding missions or commissions, and served as a bulwark to protect human rights during humanity's darkest hours. if that's what they're doing on the world stage, then you can only imagine what they're doing in communities across this country.
Right.
And so, there have been so many major moments in UN history that have helped to shape the future of the world.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? If America is saying we're not participating, the world still turns.
Yep.
It just means that we, our hands are sort of off the steering wheel, if you will.
That, and it also means that we somehow see ourselves as exempt from these processes that are meant to be universal for the entire global community to participate in and to lead by example, right? Like that was one of the big things that President Biden used to always say, right? America is most powerful when we lead by the power of our example, not the example of our power. And even during his first term, the Trump administration participated in this human rights mechanism, in the Universal Periodic Review. And it did so because, and we quote this in the article, in its justification, it says, we believe that leading on human rights has to be by example. And so if this administration is now pulling out, that means that either they don't believe that human rights are worth leading on, or they no longer believe in that principle that leadership has to be done by example. So it's more of a like, do as I say, not as I do.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of do as I say and not as I do, there are, certainly critics of the Trump administration and their record and lack thereof when it comes to human rights. But there are also critics of President Biden.
Oh, yeah.
Al Jazeera.com reporting that Israel is seeking permanent Gaza control. And we know that in a report released today, the UN Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory, they outlined Israel's plan to destroy life in Gaza and expand its illegal settlements in the occupied territory, saying that Israel is demolishing civilian infrastructure, repeatedly, forcibly transferring Palestinians across the enclave, and really severely diminishing basic info. Degree is the Biden administration, to what degree, is the Biden administration's hands not clean when it comes to human rights, being that there are folks around the world that believe that America was MIA in one of the most egregious human rights abuses that we still continue to see play out.
Yeah. I mean, to be completely honest with you, the Biden administration laid the groundwork for what we're seeing today in Gaza. And so I would offer one correction to the last thing you said, which was that, folks may say that the Biden administration was MIA. They weren't MIA. They were actually complicit in what now the leading scholars and the UN has determined a genocide. And, I was in the Biden administration during this time, and it was one of the most difficult periods of my professional career because I was not silent about my disagreements with the policies, right? I took very seriously my mandate to promote the human rights of anyone who is marginalized because of their race or ethnicity. And obviously, I included the Palestinians in that definition. And that advocacy was sometimes public and sometimes it was private. And sometimes it was external to foreign governments. And sometimes it was internal to my own government. And so I will just say there were lots of folks who resigned from the administration who I respect. And I respected their decision to resign. But there were others of us who decided very intentionally to stay on the inside to also ensure that the voices of dissent were not only those on the outside. There had to be some people on the inside continuing to advocate for the basic dignity and humanity of the Palestinians.
When we come forward, Desiree, I want to keep you around just a little bit longer. 400 entertainers co-signed ACLU's letter supporting Jimmy Kimmel. We know tonight Jimmy Kimmel will return to the air, though not. He won't be seen on as many TV stations as was the case before his show was put on ice. We're still watching this thing play out, but I want to get your take on to what degree this Jimmy Kimmel saga is an inflection point on speech around the world. Plus, former Vice President Kamala Harris's book was released today, 107 Days. I certainly been listening to it and thumbing through the pages. I'm wondering if you've been doing the same. I want to get your take on that newly released book. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 80. More with Desiree Cormier-Smith when we come forward.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
Notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and you, working to build a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm here with Desiree Cormier-Smith, the co-founder of the Alliance for Diplomacy and Justice. Jimmy Kimmel seemingly getting a modicum of justice in his return to the airwaves tonight, but not on all the ABC affiliates he was on before. Still, 400 entertainers co-signed an ACLU letter supporting Jimmy Kimmel. That's actors and musicians and film directors. They all signed this open letter organized by the ACLU decrying a dark moment for freedom of speech in our nation after ABC had indefinitely suspended the late night talk show host. Desiree, help us understand what meaning we can derive from Jimmy Kimmel's situation in the fight for freedom of speech here at home and abroad.
Yeah, again, I'm a foreign policy nerd, so I'm going to take a slightly different angle to this question, which is what we would have said or done if this happened in another country. I think, for a country that really prides itself on freedom of speech, it was deeply ironic that a late night comedian basically got censored for something he said. That is completely counter to how the United States presents itself to the world. In fact, the United States government has used its position of free speech as justification for not signing on to certain agreements in the United Nations. The United States, under this administration, has actually condemned the lack of free speech across Europe. What it sees is the lack of free speech across Europe because of European restrictions on hate speech. And in certain countries, the criminalization of, for instance, in Germany, hate speech as it relates to the Holocaust. This administration takes that as a foreign policy priority to quote unquote promote free speech. So it is deeply ironic that an administration that wants to purportedly elevate free speech as a human rights issue, if you will, is clamping down on free speech at home. It's inconsistent.
Yeah. It's inconsistent and it's human rights for some and not all. It's do as I say, not as I do. We know that last Wednesday, Brendan Carr, the chair of the Federal Communications Commission, reportedly told conservative podcaster Benny Johnson, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct to take action on Kimmel, or, we're going to be, we're just going to be additional for this. I think it's important to remind we're writing a playbook just for how we govern ourselves here in the United States, but what's acceptable for our foreign counterparts. So can you imagine a world where the folks who are running the communications commissions that license media outlets in different countries around the world, can you imagine if they took the same position as Brendan Carr? Can you imagine if artists, comedians, public figures were put under the same threat as Jimmy Kimmel in a world where that is the default?
Yeah, unfortunately, the sad reality is we don't really have to imagine. This is, right out of the authoritarian's playbook, right? You want to limit public criticism. You want to limit the ability to have public discourse about the government, about the people in power, and any kind of resistance to the current administration and their policies will be clamped down. And that is done by controlling the media. That's done by controlling what people can say and instilling fear into those who may think about criticizing the people in power and their policies. So the unfortunate reality is that we actually have seen this happen before around the world. And I think that's why you saw so many historians, so many experts, so many policy folks, and finally some members of Congress from both sides of the aisle say something like, hey, this is not who we are, and this is not who we want to be. This is not okay. Because we've seen how this could play out.
Okay. And Desiree, in our remaining minute with you, look, former Vice President Kamala Harris, her book is out, 107 Days. I was listening to it en route from LA to DC this morning. Are you reading it? Are you listening to it? And if you have already, is there any nugget that you are that you're mulling that has really sort of caught your attention? Anything in particular?
I haven't had the chance to read it yet because this is UN High Level Week, right? This is like the we called it when I was at the State Department, like diplomacy speed dating. Like this is the Super Bowl for foreign policy nerds. So I'm actually going up to New York tomorrow. So I've been focused on, Trump's UN speech, on getting this article out, on all of the things that are happening in New York. But once High Level Week is over, I really am looking forward to diving into this book.
Oh, well, we know you'll be coming back, and you have an invitation always to give us a hot take on your thoughts on that book and how it might be even shaping the future of our foreign policy as we know it. We'll have to leave it there. My thanks to the entire village helps us produce a more perfect union each and every day. Our executive producer, Tavis Smiler, send brother to our show producers, Faraji and Journey, and all of our leaders, learners, and listeners. We thank you. We curate this show every day with you in mind. Remember, don't panic, organize. Do what you can from where you are with what you have, but by all means, do something. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. She's Desiree Cormier Smith, and you've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.